Hey, I'm Chris from Cosmico. I'm here with Joe McGuire from Afrolicious. Excited to have you guys on Friday night. It's going to be fun.
Super psyched, my brother. Thank you for the invite, man. Heard great things about the festival.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And I know Afrolicious, it's going to be a party when you guys are on stage. Tell me a little bit about the Afrolicious vibe.
Definitely, man. It's the main theme is high vibe, good energy, inclusive vibes. Like try to bring everybody in the mix. Everyone's invited to that party, no matter skin tone, religion, sexual orientation, whatever. Everybody's invited to this Afrolicious party to be part of that Afrolicious family. This is a one human race. Diamond, one of our singers, always says one blood. We're all part of the one human race, man. We see the distinctions in culture and we elevate them and amplify them and celebrate them, but we never allow that to be a dividing point. Even politically, we don't agree with everybody politically, but we don't want that to be anything that keeps us from getting down together and sharing a good time together. Because no matter what our beliefs are, it's more about our actions, I think. We're acting kind and respectfully. It's funny how many people are out here fighting these fights politically and otherwise, and they're actually just doing the right thing every day as a human being, but they're hating on their neighbor or their friend because they don't agree. And so we try to dismantle all that. We try to break all those walls down and really bring folks together, man. I know a lot of people talk about that, but that has been a mission from the days of it being a DJ party to evolving into a band and stuff. Like that's always a constant part of what we do.
That's so right on. And that's what Cosmico is all about. Our mantra is music is love. Love, everything's love. Music's love, God is love, wine is love. These are all expressions of love, and that's what connects us. That is one blood, one love.
Yeah.
I think that when people feel moved, and that can be through music, through dancing, through nature, it breaks down these sort of stereotypes, preconceived notions, things that we might be arguing about online, and it
Yep.
breaks us down to our humanity, our soul, and you get to feel the vibrations, the energy, the positivity with people around you. I feel like that's a lot of what you guys are going to be bringing Friday night.
Absolutely, man. We're on the same page with all that, Chris. So I love that, man. It must make sense why we all linked up for this. And then can't forget just the fun dance aspect too. That's a huge aspect of what we do. We try to make people feel free to express themselves, dance, get down, shake it, that type of stuff too. So
That's going to
of
be
course.
cool. I don't know if we connected on this or not yet, but I was born in Nigeria. I was born in Nigeria. So in the 70s, I don't remember being there in the 70s, but I know Fela Kuti was there, and I've been back a couple times since. I've been to some pretty special places, but I've been an Afrobeat fan for a long time. Tell us a little bit about the Afrolicious kind of musical influences. I know Afrobeat's one of them, Latin fusion.
Yep.
There's a lot that goes into the whole Afrolicious sound.
Yeah, man. Yes, for me growing up, I always loved a lot of the older American music. And then, of course, so much of that has a Black root, an African root, starting with gospel, blues, jazz, all those things that led to influence rock and roll, R&B and soul, disco, hip hop, house, reggae, all these influences, all these genres, even like you mentioned, Latin, Caribbean genres. I'm a big fan of Calypso. One of our singers over the years and songwriters is from Trinidad. And I've always dug Calypso. So he brought in some of that vibe. But whether it's like Afro-Cuban son or salsa or Puerto Rican rhythms, all the rich music of Brazil, it all has this Afro root, this African root. And then if you look at most modern pop music, whether it's just straight up electronic or even a country ballad, you can't escape the kind of like African root to so much of our culture as humans and music and the African diaspora. A lot of that stuff happened through the horrible act of enslaving humans and the transatlantic slave trade. It's got a very dark and horrible history, but the beautiful flip side to that is art oftentimes comes out of misery and suffering, right? So all these great musical genres came out of a lot of that suffering and a lot of that evolution. And many different Black cultures throughout the Americas developed their own musical styles. And so much of what we have now in this modern era comes from all that. Now, a lot of people don't necessarily think about that. And history's been told in a whitewashed way, musically, culturally, otherwise. So a lot of the great innovators, I'm not hating on somebody like Elvis, okay? He's a very talented artist, but a lot of people who write history, they'll anoint somebody such as Elvis as the king of rock and roll, and then they'll overlook all these other people that came before him that gave him his style and his flavor. Like he was a great musician and a great dancer, but he didn't just come out with that stuff out of thin blue air. He had major prominent influences that brought him to that position. Even the Beatles, the Stones, they were never shy to influence, admit, talk about it, and go on about their influences. They The Beatles were basically covering Ray Charles, Little Richard, and all, Isley Brothers, all these people in their early days before they started being an original band. But like, just once you start to break down the history and the culture of where this music comes from, it makes sense. The Afrolicious thing. It's the African diaspora. Love reggae, be more specific. Love reggae, ska, rock steady. That influenced our music a lot. Not just the reggae, but dub culture that came out of reggae is really the roots of modern remix culture, you know? So I'm not sure if you're a dub fan, but for those who don't know, it was an accident where they were mixing and they left the vocal out accidentally. And they're like, it wasn't just an instrumental. They were messing with effects and reverb and delay and all these things. But they're like, wow, this is really cool the way they mixed it. And so they started to experiment with only throwing in clips or snippets of the vocals, snippets of the horns or guitar, dropping out part of the bass or drums, and then creating this big open space. But they're basically remixing these songs that already existed. And that was long before house and hip hop and electronic music and pop culture started using the whole remix platform. So you got that. And then you got hip hop in the 70s. Two of the primary DJs in the early 70s when hip hop started were from the West Indies, and they knew about Jamaican sound system culture, which was big in the 60s, which featured a guy selecting records as a DJ who's called the selector. It featured a guy or girl, whatever, on the mic who was called a DJ, but they were actually what we now think of as MC in hip hop. So there's all this history, right? Hip hop really started in Jamaica in the 60s in a way. Officially became a genre in New York in the 70s, but even had this Caribbean influence. And then whether it's Fela, like you mentioned, in Nigeria, or the Calypso I was talking about, or even ska in Jamaica, like big band jazz from the 20s and 30s, you know, which is primarily starting as a New Orleans genre. I come from KC. KC had a big jazz scene where Charlie Parker came out of, and Count Basie and all these people. New York, of course, had an insane jazz scene. Chicago. But as soon as the recording industry started spreading these recordings to Africa, Brazil, the Caribbean, Europe, Asia, all these other musicians in other parts of the world started to really vibe off the African-American sound that we had developing in this country. So the Black American influence is so massive worldwide, dating back to jazz, not even to mention rock and roll and blues and soul and R&B and all these other genres that came after. So anyway, I just came to that conclusion from being a big music head. I was doing Latin radio show in college in the early 2000s here in Lawrence, Kansas. And University Kansas, KU has a really great radio station, KJHK. So anyway, I know I'm going on long-winded here, but I used to do a Latin show, which featured anything from my co-host was from Venezuela. So we'd have Venezuelan roots music or Afro-Venezuelan stuff, Peruvian, a lot of Colombian. Colombia has a ton of great music. Anything from Panama to Cuba to other parts of the Caribbean. And I was slowly but surely tracing it back to Africa. I was playing some music from Africa. But then eventually I started getting way, I was like Fela or UMass Kayla, but eventually I started getting way into all this different African music. And then I just put it all together that all this music belongs together in a DJ set or a party or a night or a radio show. It all can flow together. You can mix it all together. You could go from Brazil to Africa to New York to Mexico or to Cuba to wherever, track after track subsequently. Just keep, and then that goes even beyond just those obvious places. There's so much funky music from Asia, from Europe, from anywhere in the world that eventually I just got into this really outer national, international kind of mindset. And I got into music from all over the world. And I've come back to the US for my love of music from this country too, partially because I never became that bilingual. I can speak a little Spanish, but I love the lyrics. So it's easier for me to digest. And that's lazy too, because nowadays you got Google Translate. So you can learn the lyrics from anywhere. I can speak a little Spanish, a little Portuguese, but anyways, I keep coming back to music from this country because it's so rich and so deep. But man, I love it from everywhere, from all over the world. And I love all the funky music, all the music with the Afro root. And it evolved as a DJ concept. And then eventually we were like, let's write our own. I was always a songwriter anyway, but let's write our own Afrolicious music. Let's collaborate with some of these folks who come through the party every week. Because for those in the Bay Area and Cali, some of you might remember the party, which was from like 07 to 14 or 2015 at the Elbow Room. We used to do it there every Thursday. And then we used to do one-off weekly parties in the Bay or LA or other parts of the country. And DJ with live percussion, live horns, and all this stuff. So anyway, we've had a huge crew of amazing artists be our collaborators. And at some point around 2010, 2011, we're like, we need to put out original Afrolicious music. And we started a band. So it wasn't just a kind of DJ live hybrid. We actually had a live band. And so we've been rolling ever since. The party started about 2006, 2007. The band started around 2011 officially. We're coming up on 20 years of this project existing.
That's amazing. I know it's a storied history, and I have been curious because I know you do DJ sets, you do live band sets. This is going to be a live band set, but weaving all of this together, Tell me a little bit about a live show. Do you have, is it all live instrumentation? Are you playing records? Are you hybrid coming in and out? I know the party's going to be live, but tell us what the performance is going to be
Sure.
like.
The night, I definitely had strong influence to sound system culture, Jamaican sound system culture. There's influence of hip hop and house, disco, especially in the 70s. Not the genre exclusively. I'm talking the actual scene of disco came out of largely of this guy, David Mancuso in New York. And he mixed all these amazing styles similar to how we do back in the 70s and similar to what we do, very influenced by him. It was all about inclusivity and different groups of people. Like in New York in the day, it was just an insane party. I was not born yet, but I've studied the history. And so that came out of that. And then the live element came. My brother, I noticed, was adding percussionists to his DJ sets way early 2000s. And we were influenced by a DJ crew in New York that did that. Nicki, Nappy G, great percussionist DJ, Turntable in the Hudson. So as a guy who comes in the live music scene, long before I was into DJing, I always loved that combo. So we always brought that when we started the DJ thing. Then we call it a sound system set or whatever, DJ live percussion. And then we did the band, and that was more of a true hybrid, like full-on instrumentation, almost P-Funk size, like sometimes 10 plus members on stage. And then to add in some of that electronic feel and element of the club culture, we'd bring in some of the beats and some of the layers from the production and from the studio and from the DJ mentality. But over time, I got to say, unless you're investing in a certain gear, and unless you have a sound man or woman with you at all your shows who knows how to do it right, that can be a little bit of a headache to combine the full-on band with that. There are people that do it. Thievery Corporation, we used to work with them. They're a big influence. Balkan Beatbox was really good with that too. The full-on band with some of the track and the electronic. I love it, and I think when it's done, it sounds great. But I'll tell you, as far as pure energy goes, it's fun to not have any kind of backing track at all, to play your music 100% all the way, fully live. No electronics, no trickery, no computers, no samplers. That's how we roll, and we've been rolling like that for years. And the energy is just so off the hook like that. That's how we do, man. The drum beat you're hearing is played by the drummer. The percussion is played by the percussion. Everything's done in real time. The way that music have to always be made back in the day. Only in the last 10 to 20 years could you make all this hybrid stuff, which is cool. I'm a fan of it. But I still, as a live musician, love it being made for you on the spot by purveyors of live instruments. I love that as a fan. And as a musician, I love it too, because you can make your music incredibly tight with a sampler or a backing track or a laptop, but you can't change it very much. You can't tweak it very much. You can't push and pull the tempo unless you have somebody dedicated to playing the machine itself, or like a drummer where he's got something on his foot where he can slow and speed down the tempo with that or something. Like, it's always going to be just right down the line, perfectly metronomic. And I don't know, for me, that's not where it's at. Granted, a lot of music I DJ is like that. I still change the tempo even when I DJ too. Try to not always keep it the same.
Allowing for what that does is it allows for the human connection between performers and audience, which is such a big part of experiencing live music. It's an energy exchange. The performers are putting out energy. Once the vibes start hitting, the audience starts reacting to it. You start getting down. That gives it back to the performers. It's a loop. And, through that loop, we're lifting up humanity. But if there's no kind of closed loop, if you're just playing music. And it's interesting, I was just on a call with Jason Bentley from KCRW, and we were talking about Coachella this year. And one of the things he was lamenting was how many of the performances, even though traditionally DJ performances, you're beat matching, you're doing some stuff. He was like, a lot of the DJ performances, it's like the Super Bowl. It's just totally pre-recorded. They get out there and hype man, but he was just saying, that's no good. There's no energy exchange. That is part of what it's all about.
Yeah, no doubt. That's awesome. Jason said that. Yeah, he's a great purveyor of the music and arts. And I used to live in LA, so I'd always listen to him, run into each other sometimes at events and stuff. We have some common friends, and I don't know if he'll remember me when I see him, but I look forward to hopefully linking with that guy. And oh man, I've been enjoying. I wanted to compliment you too, because I see your love of music, man. I know from our conversations on the phone, but I've been enjoying these videos you've been posting like this with the other artists. And I think I saw a little clip of David Grisman's son, Sam Grisman. Is it Sam Grisman?
Yeah, Sam Grisman on Sunday. Yeah.
I look forward to checking his music more, because I've come across him on the socials, and I'm a big fan of his father's, man. Like, going back to when I was about 15, I used to see David Grisman fairly often. And so he comes from a rich musical tradition and family, man. David Grisman is a musical master. Love that guy. And so I know his son's keeping the legacy going, which is awesome. And I don't know if I'll be able to catch a set Saturday, but man, you got a cool lineup, man. I'm excited to play with some other buds on Friday too. Uh, so
It is a great
King
lineup.
Green.
I'm feel blessed with everybody that said yes and said I'm in. And I think the experience and what we're trying to create is coming through. The message is coming through. People are pretty pumped. So that's cool. Yeah, Sam's great. He's keeping up the legacy of David, his dad, and Jerry. They play a
Yeah.
lot of the Dead music, and that's going to be really special. Yeah, it's great. You guys are going to lead Jason after your set on the main stage. We'll take it inside. Jason's going to be doing a DJ set. So yeah, Friday night's going to be rocking. That Friday night is going to be fun, man. That's going to be a
Ooh,
party.
heck yeah, man. Can't wait, brother.
Yeah. All right, cool. If anybody wants to check out some Afrolicious, give it a listen. Where would you point them? Tell me a song or tell me a performance or something on Spotify where you would point people to get a little taste of the Afrolicious sound.
Yeah, for sure, man. We've been putting out some music in the last couple of years, which I guess you would call part of our newer catalog because some of the stuff dates back to our first album's back to 2013. I definitely recommend that first album too for people because it's our classic sound. We don't really have top 40 radio hits, but that's the music that got played on the radio the most, actually. There's a lot of really good collaborations with Freshest Life, who still part of our crew, and maybe we can even get him out there at Cosmico, who knows, but he's an awesome vocalist and songwriter, and so he's on a few of those tracks. But the recent songs I recommend people to check out, I feel like we're doing some funky, jazzy extenuations of what we've always done, just continue to evolve the groove a little. And if you just look at the most recent on our discography on Spotify and stuff, like That's Right, or let's see, what's the other ones we've been putting out? Make the World, Human Rights. These types of tunes came out recently in the last year or two. But yeah, any of the platforms folks use too, if it's on Spotify, whatever, we're on Apple Music or Tidal or all that type of biz or YouTube. But I would just recommend people start either on the most recent or the California Dream in the first album and then work their way towards the middle. That's what I would think to do. The last full-length album we did was pretty cool. That came out. I like that. I'm pretty proud of that. I produced that with the band, everybody making their contributions. It's hard without the huge budget to all be in the studio together. But we did the full-on live drums and everybody playing their part, layering it. Sometimes we had to do it separately because COVID and we weren't all in the same town. I was living in LA with half the band at that time. Half the band was still in the Bay Area at that time. Anyways, but that album came out pretty good. We play a lot of that album in our set these days. So that's from 2020, Seed of Creation. And it's basically saying inside of destruction lives the seed of creation because we were going through it felt like all of society in the world was being broken down and had to be recreated at that time. So it plays off the theme. And I feel like we're still in that process of recreating hopefully a better world post-COVID. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that, but that's the goal.
That is the goal. Everything that goes along with that, elevating our consciousness and bringing people together. I think that's the spirit of Cosmico, and hopefully that ripples out into the world. There's a lot of troubles in the world, as we know, but this bringing people together and sharing the love of music, I think it's going to be pretty special.
Absolutely, man. We need that healing, brother.
Yeah, we do.
Need it.
We do. All right. Thanks for being with me today, Joe. Can't wait to see you in a week. It's going to be fun. And we'll see Afrolicious on Friday night at Cosmico. Can't wait.
Thank you so much for the invite, Chris. We can't wait to rock it with you, man.
Yeah, me too. All right. All right.